Congratulations. You're here. And whether you know it or not, we're making history right now. And as I look at you, I see making history is beautiful. I want to thank you, those of you who either came across the Bay Bridge or came across the country, 36 states in all, to be together in this moment. I'm really grateful to you, to each one of you, and for everyone who joined with me to make the vision of She the People a reality. Elmas Abinader's beautiful poem reads, "Change starts when you listen to the heart." It was my heart that led me to call for this gathering. You know, as a girl, my heart would break when I witnessed or experienced injustice. But my heart would also expand and fill when I sensed hope and connection and joy. So I first heard the call for She the People years ago, long ago, when I was a young woman in uniform here in California, and I heeded the call of conscience to oppose an unjust war. It was my heart for my hometown that inspired me to run for city council in Oakland all those years ago. But in the decades since, I have been advocating for women of color to step fully into our fierce and loving leadership and collective power. And all this time, my heart, our strongest muscle, was calling for this, a call for love of our own and others, to seek justice for everyone, to ensure that everyone belongs, and that this American democracy lives up to its greatest promise. So the stakes are really high right now. We are facing threats to our common humanity and our basic civil rights. We are witnessing active efforts from the White House and Congress to dissemble not only the laws that should protect us, but also to directly attack our communities and our values of common decency, attacks that are ripping the very fabric that holds us together. Consider what's happening right now at the Kavanaugh hearings. I came of age during Anita Hill's courageous testimony in 1991. And at that time, watching her on TV, I marveled at that young and law professor testifying to an all-white male Senate Judiciary Committee about the harassment she suffered from Clarence Thomas. I believed her then. We believed her then. But she was belittled, mocked, excoriated by the white men of both parties. Her bravery and decades of work since have created space for Christine Ford to make her powerful testimony. Remember, it was the wake of the spectacle almost 30 years ago that we organized for electoral power. And as a result, Carol Moseley Braun became the first Black woman elected to the U.S. Senate. So let's be clear, organizing that's led by women of color and a multiracial force will stop Kavanaugh. And in a few short weeks, many more of our courageous leaders are going to join Senators Kamala Harris and Mazie Hirono in office. We women of color are the saving graces of our democracy. We are the ones holding up a high moral standard for the rest of the nation. Remember Alabama? And we have Tarana Burke to thank for creating a Me Too movement that's holding the powerful to account. So that's why we're gathering up here at the summit, not down in the depths where many elected officials in the White House reside. We are gathering up here at the summit to say families belong together and time's up, and march for our lives and the end of the madness and the violence. All of us and all of our sisters across the nation are here at this summit telling the nation we are She the People. And as we heard earlier today, ours is not the first generation to declare She the People. Our lineage runs wide and deep. And we come back to the spirit of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and Ida B. Wells and Ella Baker. She the People resounded in the words of Grace Lee Boggs and Yuri Kochiyama. She, the people, found voice with the first woman Cherokee chief, Wilma Mankiller, and organizer Luisa Moreno, and with young civil rights foot soldiers, Diane Nash and Ruby Sales. She, the people's in the pages of A Bridge Called My Back. She, the people, finds inspiration with Dolores Huerta, who's in the room with us today. It was Dolores Huerta who taught the nation to say, "Si se puede." And it was exemplified by my hero, Shirley Chisholm, who began her historic run for Congress some 50 years ago today. These are our godmothers. And we follow in their footsteps, as well as so many countless other women of color leaders, many unknown or unnamed in history. They make it possible for us to be here today. We, women of color, mark our own strand in the moral arc for justice. We are leading the nation to a new, progressive political and cultural era. So consider this. In 2018, something historic is happening. 1 of 3 nominees for Congress is a woman of color. 1 of 3. '18 is the year of women of color. And women of color aren't just winning elections by chance. The Democratic Party base, now half people of color, is yearning for this change. And a Rutgers study that was published just about a week ago shows the Democrats favor candidates of color and females by a 19-point margin. They want us, and we're coming. And women of color are leading a multiracial Democratic coalition that will win in swing states and beyond this year and in 2020. But I want to be clear. These victories are not just about electing Democrats. We women of color have bigger plans for the nation. We are seeking economic, social, and racial justice. We want a country where people can live lives of dignity. And that means full access to health care, housing, and education. And when we win, we will govern with our deepest values and full humanity in view. I want to tell you something about our numbers. Since 2000, of all the women who became eligible to vote in this country, 74% were women of color. We're the fastest growing voting bloc, and we represent the most progressive voters at the polls. Black women consistently have been the highest vote turnout of any race and gender. And I know after the victory of Doug Jones in the special Senate election in Alabama, the DNC leaders tweet #ThankBlackWomen. But black women have been there since 1965, when the Voting Rights Act guaranteed our access to the polls. And no one yet has been talking about the power of the Latina, and the power of the Asian American woman, the power of the Native woman vote, the power of the Arab American woman vote. We collectively are 20% of the population, and still today, we're the least represented group. We're 3% of elected officials. But I have some good news for you. Right now, in places like Arizona, Texas, Georgia, and Florida, women of color strategists, many of whom are in the room today, are the ones who know the new playbook, how to engage and inspire people of color to go to the polls. These women of color know how to support the candidates who will fight for our community. In the primaries this year, these women of color strategists were crucial for increased voter turnout for our candidates. In the state of Georgia, 200,000 new Democrats showed up to the polls over 2014. And we can credit this wisdom and skill and strategy of these women of color. So these group of organizers know how to get things done. They understand something that I wish that the larger country understood. That swing voters are not moving. Our swing voters are not moving from red to blue. We never really thought Trump was an option. Our swing voters are non-voter to voter, and when we vote, we win. So I want to credit those organizers who worked hard every day and took a break out to join us at She the People. These women of color are the architects of our revived democracy. But America's destiny does not hinge on one administration or one party. Hope in 2018 comes from the courageous, principled women of color running and winning this year. It's Stacey Abrams, who will be the first Black woman governor in history, Georgia. It's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who beat a 10-term Democrat in New York. It's Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, our first Muslim congresswoman. And Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, our second. It's Deb Haaland, from New Mexico, who will be our first Native woman in Congress. It's Sharice Davis, LGBT congressional candidate in Kansas. It's Ayanna Pressley, who just beat a long-term incumbent in Massachusetts. It's Gina Ortiz-Jones, Filipina veteran running for Congress in Texas. There are thousands of women who are running, not only at the congressional level, but the state houses and local levels. And here's just a note from someone who ran and lost. I want to give a big shout out to the women of color who ran in the primaries and did not come away with victory this time. We understand the establishment didn't back most of us. We are working here at She the People to create our own path to victory. So you give us hope, and you give us a reason to go on. So my message to you, run again. We women of color are the leaders we've been waiting for. Our country needs us, and we need each other. We are answering the call to serve, a call women of color have been answering for centuries. The work that we're doing is finally coming into view for the world to see. We're living into a democracy that we've dreamed of. It's a politics we have not yet seen. It's a faith that believes in love and justice and belonging. So let's lead the nation. She the People is preparing us over the next year to lead the nation. They need us and we need us. Thank you so much for joining us today at She the People. Thank you.